Good evening. At least it's evening in the Philadelphia area at this time. I'm going to continue the discussion of Israel and Palestine and the continuing, unending battle of minds and bodies, unfortunately, as well. What comes to mind is a recent article that came to my attention through one of the news services by Peter Beinart, and I don't even know I'm pronouncing that correctly because I was not familiar with him before, and a very forceful rebuttal from Brooke. Let's see if we have this right. I think it's Goldstein. Um, and the rebuttal was actually more forceful in terms of directly attacking the ideas. Uh, Personally, I don't think we're going to make much headway discussing things by attacking people directly and their motives. They may deserve being attacked, but that's not a way to pursue a discussion to try to move a problem forward or to at least increase understanding. You know, it's sort of like the Facebook discussions that go, "You're a fascist," "No, you're a communist," back and forth, and no resolution. So let's start with what Beinart suggested, which was a one-state solution for the problem with Palestine and Israel. And I will inject well, in his defense, or at least partially in the defense of that position. Uh, the liberal position in general assumes that people are at heart good and well meaning and have a real desire for peace. Uh, the conservative position says that people are unlikely to be so well behaved and in fact expect the opposite. Well, what does the world teach us in terms of experiments with one state solutions? Probably the most successful one state in the world is the United States. Um, Most other countries are more homogeneous. I don't think there's any country in the world which is composed of as many different groups, ethnicities, religions, races, cultures, etc., as the United States. And the fact that the country is reasonably still together is an unusual example, and it doesn't serve as a good example for the rest of the world, and probably largely due to the fact that because there are so many, it's harder to build it as a war between one and the other. But notice what's happening with the black population in the United States right now, with the riots and the unfair treatment and the prejudice. It's not a happy marriage of all these groups. It's an uneasy relationship, and this is the best example in the world. Another example might be Canada. Canada is much more homogeneous. They managed to keep a French population reasonably satisfied, although they periodically try to rebel and form a separate nation from Canada. Uh, but they balance it by having Quebec as semi-autonomous, at least in terms of having French as their major language, and I suspect it's a majority Catholic population there, and they're reasonably well integrated into one state, even though they frequently consider breaking out. But the populations are separate. It's not like the French population of Canada was 30% in all the provinces, or 50% in all the provinces, in which case it may not be so peaceful. Other examples of multi-ethnic states, Soviet Union, but the different ethnicities are separated geographically there. They have different provinces, different governors, and it didn't work out too well in Afghanistan, you'll note, and there's been other areas which were former Soviet Union, which are no longer. Ukraine is a good example. The difference between Ukrainians and Russians. Well, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church is slightly independent of the Russian Orthodox Church. Actually, I think they are independent now. I'm not sure they were so independent in the past. Their languages are similar, and they're killing each other. Even with separate nations. So that's we have to search very hard to find an example that would suggest that two forces, two peoples which hate each other as much as the divide between Palestinians and Israelis is. You can't find a nation that has that far a divide in groups that are living peacefully together. Look at Serbia and Croatia, parts of former Yugoslavia. They killed one another. A horrible bloody war between the two, and the result was two nations, not one. Yugoslavia fell apart. Multi-ethnic cultures just do not work. That's the reality. The liberal notion is they should work, and I don't disagree with the fact that everybody should get along with everybody, but that is, it is not realistic, and it is particularly unrealistic in Palestine/Israel. Let's look at the little more peaceful situation. How about Czechoslovakia? We have Czechs and Slovaks. How different were they? I guess there are some differences in language. I'm not sure about the alphabet or so, but it was one country for a long time. Now that's a good example of a peaceful separation of two ethnic groups. And we're talking about ethnic groups which are much closer together. How about the Uyghurs in China? That's a good combination too. So what you see is example after example after example of disparate ethnicities not getting along, and in worst case scenario actually killing each other as opposed to living together peacefully. And it is a giant leap of imagination on the part of Beinart, and a unbelievable faith in the goodness of humanity to make the suggestion that you can make one state out of Palestinians and Israelis. Let's discuss the divide there. The divide between Muslims and Jews goes back to the time of Muhammad. Muhammad made war upon the Jews, basically wiping them out of Saudi Arabia. He personally, but his forces, the Islamic forces, attacked the Byzantine Empire, the part which was before and is now, again, Israel. So they don't have a good history of relating well with other groups. It's been conquer and dominate. And the expectation of the Islamic world, and in fact most of the world at the time when Israel declared independence, was that they would be wiped out by the Islamic armies, as has occurred over many centuries in many parts of the world. But the world was shocked, surprised, and perhaps a bit disappointed when that wasn't the result. So how do you get these two people to live together in peace? Well, one, the Quran is flat out anti-Semitic. I shouldn't say anti-Semitic. Semites actually include Arabs, but let's say anti-Jewish for sure. The the Quran is very explicit about seeking out and killing Jews. The Palestinians make no secret of the fact that they want to kill Jews. Now, they may have lots of reasonable grievances, and I'm not going to go into that at this time. But when you handle your grievances by killing men, women, and children in supermarkets and school buses and airplanes, etc., it's very hard to turn around and say, well, now let's get together and form one peaceful nation together, particularly while they're still preaching that. Now, a lot of people, including a number of my friends, still feel that Israel is the culprit in terms of not making peace. And a lot of this comes from a gross misunderstanding of what is said in the English press, English-speaking press, I'm referring to, and what is said in actual negotiations. The reality is that the Palestinians have never accepted the existence of a Jewish state. They will negotiate saying, yes, we will support Israel so long as Israel becomes an Islamic state. It goes like that. And if you don't believe me, that's okay, because it's not important that I believe that there's a sincere effort, or even any effort whatsoever, to create two independent states living in peace on the Arab side. The people who have to be convinced are the Israelis. They can vote, and they can vote in a peace candidate, or they can vote in a hardliner, which they've done in a number of elections. And when they've had a peace candidate, the peace negotiations fall apart. And they usually fall apart when you get to the hard substance of recognizing a state of Israel that is a Jewish state. So encourage your friends and anybody else who feels strongly that the Arab cause is maligned, that they need to come out and speak to their own people, to the Israelis, that they want a two-state solution that will include a Jewish state and a Palestinian state. And the Palestinian state will be mostly Muslim and Arab, and the Jewish state will be mostly Jewish, but with Arabs, Muslims, Christians, Druze, and many others who managed to function reasonably well under a Jewish state. Minorities in Islamic states generally do not do so well. The history of Islamic nations around the world is not a very good one by itself. Look at Iraq, with Shiites and Sunnis fighting. Look at Yemen. Look at Lebanon, where there's been Christian-Muslim wars for many years now. Look at the authoritarian regimes in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. It's not reasonable to think that a peace is anywhere close on the horizon dealing with those odds. So I'll leave Peter Beinart, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, to his dreams, which could only turn into nightmares. I'll say to Brooke Goldstein, she made a powerful rebuttal, but I don't know that she's going to get to people who are neutral on the issue, which is what I'm trying to do. It's kind of a one person crusade, not likely to be very successful. But it comes with the territory of seeking peace and justice for all, if you will, as Superman claimed. Unfortunately, I'm not Superman, so I can't make changes the way he did. But nonetheless, I'm trying to encourage a discussion which proceeds by dealing with facts. And if you dispute the facts, be happy to address the dispute with proper consideration of your opinion, which is what I've done with Beinart. I have not dismissed it as the ramblings of a madman, idiot, or anti-Semite, even though he's Jewish himself. But I take it as the serious longings of a liberal who dreams that people can live together in peace. God willing, that will be the case someday. And I'm grateful for all those who are working now for peace in the Middle East, including those who are members of the Abrahamic Reunion and other groups in Israel, which are working for a realistic peace, not a false peace, which will be like Serbia, Croatia, or like the Uyghurs in China, etc. All right, we'll say goodnight to everybody. This lasted just over 18 minutes. If I could type better and write better, I might have been able to do this in print, but my typing is horrendous. My writing is almost as bad, and when you combine the two, not pretty. Good night, all.